Greetings everyone! Today we are going to present you our group project for the African business topics. We will be focusing on Algeria and some essential business related questions, and also we will present to you some of the most beautiful touristic locations. Firstly, special thanks to Selva Hosna, Algerian embassy representative, who answered our questions. And now my colleagues are going to represent them one by one the information we gathered from her about Algeria. Thank you.
The Algerian tax system. Within the framework of globalization, Algeria has undertaken for several decades several strategies to improve the competitiveness of its tax system. The objective is to diversify the tax sources in order not to remain dependent on oil taxation. A governmental strategy which has devoted the implementation of a codification of tax legislation and a modernization of tax services. So in order to establish an innovative tax strategy and likely to increase the volume of investments in a diversified economy, Algeria has put in place a competitive tax system at the Mediterranean level. And this competitiveness is certainly felt in terms of tax rates of various incomes, but also through preferential regimes granted to investors. The tax conventions and bilateral agreement ratified by Algeria also offers access to tax optimization of capital importance to Algeria and to current and potential investors. So the company as a taxpayer, every company is liable to pay the following taxes. Companies under the fixed price regime and whose annual turnover is less than 30 million dinar as a single fixed tax, and in a measure of simplification, this tax was created in order to tax small businesses. The companies under the real regime and whose annual turnover exceeds 30 million dinar are supposed to follow the following taxes. So the tax on professional activity, the tax on corporate profits, the property tax, registration duties, stamp duties, and the tax on professional activities is an important source of revenue for local authorities to which it is fully allocated. The tax on professional activities is a tax based on the total amount of turnover or gross. Standard rate of TAP is 2%. A reduced rate of 1% is applicable for activities of production of goods. A rate of 2% with a reduction of 25% for the activities of building, public works and hydraulics. However, this rate is increased to 3% for the turnover resulting from activity of transporting hydrocarbons through pipelines. Other reductions are applicable according to the sectors of activity of the company.
Regardless of the legal status of the persons involved in realization of these operations, and regardless of their situations with regard to the provisions of the legalization on other taxes, they are subject to this tax. Three types of tax treatments are provided for: taxation at the rate of 19%, another at 9%, and exemptions for certain products. The VAT is supposed to be paid by the final consumer, so the company receives value added tax on the purchase of goods and services and charges VAT on the sale. The value added tax payable represents the positive difference between the collected called withholding tax, which the taxpayer can claim in future returns or for a refund. Companies in a structural withholding tax suitable can apply for VAT quota. And the second one is the global income tax. The company also called on behalf of the states the IRG on salaries, contrary to European countries where the salary taxation is based on the spontaneous declaration. Salary taxation concerns salaries, allowance, wages, pensions, as well as life annuities, with the exemptions of allowance, bonuses, and gratuities not subject to the 10% withholding tax, implies income is subject to the withholding tax at source and operated by the employer according to the monthly progressive IRG scale, provincial scale schemes. The main regime or the regime for groups of companies and investments code. Again, the tax regime applicable to international transactions. A company wishing to set up an activity in Algeria can opt for two different regimes: the common law regime and the withholding tax regime. Under the common law scheme, the establishment is carried out either out by the creation of the uh, subsidiary, or through a branch of or any other establishment site like office local, provided that complete commercial cycles are carried out, which normally gives rise to the remuneration. Foreign companies having a permanent professional establishment in Algeria are subjects, in the same way as Algerian company, to the common law regime. With regard to the withholding tax regime, foreign companies that don't have a permanent place to business in Algeria are involved in the service contract and subjects to a withholding tax on IBS or IRG with respect to value added tax. The sales tax code required Algerian consumers to declare that the value added tax due by their foreign suppliers established outside Algeria self liquidation, and to pay it to the treasury. So obviously, the difference regime are dependent on the provisions contained in the tax conventions and bilateral agreement ratified by the Algeria.
addition, any administrative file filed by an economic agent must be containing a copy of identification notice from ONS, the Office for National Statistics. To obtain statistical identification number NIAS, an administrative file must be submitted to Statistical Service of the regional branches of the National Statistic Office. This file varies depending on the type of economic or social entity. Social entities such as legal entity, natural person, or administrative entity. Type of legal entities are SARL, EURL, SPA, and SNC. The original copies of various documents must be submitted. Moving on, file to be provided for the allocation of NIS are copy of tax card, NIF, or certificate of existence, copy of the trade register or approval economic, the NIS form filled with white stamp of the legal entity chosen. The important fact is the presentation of original documents is mandatory. There are two examples of different type of entities which requires different types of criteria. You can have a look at it. So moving on to the next part, which is new law investment promotion in Algeria. The adoption of new law N Decree 22 to 18 was published on July 24, 2022 relating to investment, published in the official Gazette N Decree 50 on July 18, 2022. The law of 2022 modifies and completes Law 1609 on August 2016 relating the promotion of investment. The law applies to investment made through the acquisition of tangible or intangible assets directly involved in production activities of goods and services with framework of creation of new activities, extension of production capacities, and rehabilitation of production tools. Participation in capital of company in the form of cash or in-kind contribution. So thank you for listening to me. Moving on to the next part from my colleague.
Algeria's cultural heritage. Cultural heritage covers various manifestations, both tangible, such as sites, monuments, cultural landscapes, and arts objects, and intangible, such as languages, knowledge, know-how, and folklore. Property inscribed on the World Heritage List. The Kasbah, in one of the most beautiful maritime sites in the Mediterranean, overlooking the islets where a Carthaginian trading post was established as early as the 4th century BC. The Kasbah constitutes a unique type of Medina, or Islamic city, a place of memory as well as history. It includes remains of the citadel, ancient mosques, Ottoman palaces, and a traditional urban structure associated with a strong sense of community. Jamila, or also called Krikul, with its forum, temples, and basilics, triumphal arches, and houses, at an altitude of 900 meters, is a remarkable example of Roman urban planning adapted to a mountainous site. Kala of Beni Hamed, in a mountainous site, a striking beauty. The ruins of the first capital of the Hamid Emir, founded in 1007 and dismantled in 1152, give us the authenticity image of a fortified Muslim city. Its mosque, with its prayer hall of 13 naves with 8 bays, is one of the largest in Algeria. Tipaza. On the shores of the Mediterranean, Tipaza, a former Punic trading post, was occupied by Rome, which made it a strategic base for the conquest of the Mauritanian kingdoms. It includes a unique set of Phoenician, Roman, Paleo-Christian, and Byzantine vestige, next to native monuments such as the Kbor, Rumia, a great royal mausoleum of Mauritania. Timgad. On the northern of the Oris, Timgad was created ex nihilo in 100 AD by the Emperor Trajan as a military colony, with its square enclosure and its orthogonal plan ordered by the Cardo and the Decumanus, the two perpendicular roads that cross the city, is a perfect example of Roman urbanism. Mzab Valley. The landscape of the Mzab Valley, created in the 10th century by the Ibadites around their 5 or fortified villages, seems to have remained intact. Simple, functional, and perfectly adapted to the environment, the architecture of the Mzab has been designed for a community life, while respecting family structure. It is a source of inspiration for today's urban planners. Tassil Nager, this strange lunar landscape of great geological interest, shelters one of the most important set of prehistoric rock art in the world. More than 15,000 drawing and engraving make it possible to follow since 6000 BC until the first century of our era the changes of the climate, the migration of the fauna, and the evolution of the human life on the borders of the Sahara. The panorama of geological formations is of exceptional interest. With its exceptional interest, its forest of rock and of eroded sandstone. There are also applications for registration in progress.
So it was our presentation about Algeria, its opportunities, capabilities, and just interesting places. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Thank you for listening.